right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here. You can listen in every week on RTÉ.ie, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and hit follow on any of those platforms to get the latest episodes, and click the subscribe button for free on the RTÉ Sport YouTube channel to get this podcast and more RTÉ videos, including GA match highlights. This week, we're talking the second part of Ireland's Women's Euro 2025 qualifying doubleheader against Sweden, the men's friendlies, reacting to Real Madrid's Champions League final, and reviewing the latest LOI action. Joined today by former St. Pat's and Shelbourne midfielder Conan Byrne, 42.ie journalist David Sneyd, and RTÉ Sports Anthony Pyne. Hope you're all keeping well. We're going to start on Ireland against Sweden, and obviously the second part of that double header is in Solna tomorrow night. It's going to be live on RT2, the RT player, from 5 o'clock on Tuesday, and it's also on the radio on 2FM. And the game last Friday was a 3-0 victory for Sweden. And Anthony, I suppose ultimately it's the most comprehensive of the defeats that Ireland have had in this group so far, notwithstanding the fact that they've come up against juggernauts like France and England. But what are the positives and what are the concerns that are coming out of that performance?
Yeah, it was the most comprehensive defeat, but probably the best performance, I think. Certainly the first half, in terms of getting the balance right between being solid without the ball and posing a threat against these teams. Because look, it was always going to be the case, realistically, Raf. You know, the chances of Ireland getting out of this group or finishing in the top two in this group, which would earn automatic qualification to the Euros, that was extremely unlikely because you're up against the best of the best. The three other teams are all ranked inside the top six in the world, and you'll find that like the climb, once you get into the top 10 in the world, Ireland have never beaten a team in a competitive game ranked inside the world's top 10. It's really difficult to do it because it's just the gulf becomes massive. But I thought they tactically it looked like they were the most balanced. I think they were probably too deep against France and England, and like the players and Eileen Gleeson had mentioned a few times that they felt like they'd been a little too passive against England. They didn't really lay a glove on them until the last sort of 15 minutes when Megan Campbell was launching in throw-ins and they pushed another body up front. So it was great to see them making chances, taking the game to Sweden. But and I know we'll touch on the Champions League final later, but when you look at an underdog team and they miss a couple of very good chances, you kind of feel you know what's coming. And that was how you felt watching that game. When Lily Agg missed a chance at 0-0, and then Amber Barrett had a brilliant chance when it was 1-0 to equalise with a header a few yards out. You just thought, well, they're not going to get away with that, because Sweden, despite the fact that Sweden were missing some really big players, they're missing Stina Blackstenius, who's their top striker, and they still have an awful lot of class. Like Rolfo won the Champions League with Barcelona a few weeks ago, and she was excellent, and they just have that, they're just that level higher. But there actually was a lot for Ireland to take out of that game, and I think maybe people will look at these results. They've lost now the last three in the qualifiers. They lost. They were poor against Wales in a friendly, which we could kind of disregard. They tried something new that night and it just didn't work. But generally, I do think they're going in the right direction, and you probably can't see it now because the teams they're playing are so good. It probably won't be until the playoffs that you see it. But I do think that there is a progression there. Vera Pauw in her last 7 matches in charge won 1 game in her last 7, and she had a period in her reign where she lost 7 in a row because she adopted a policy of playing high-ranking teams and friendlies to try and hasten the development and the improvement of the team. So I think Ireland are okay. Like, and they made, I thought, 3 very good chances in the first half, and I think if Denise O'Sullivan had been playing, they probably would have made 6, because they just lacked that little bit of composure and guile in the middle of the park. There were moments, they had some really big openings and great chances, but they had an awful lot of moments where just the last pass let them down, or the decision making was a little off, and they were really fired up. And then it's hard to kind of calm yourself down when you get the ball. Like, they were steaming into tackles, and then they were trying to maybe rushing passes and stuff. But look, they go to Stockholm tomorrow night, and I don't really like using the term free swing. These are international games, they're competitive games, and they have to go out and acquit themselves well and show that they are, they're learning lessons. But at this point, it kind of is a bit of a free swing. Like, they're guaranteed a place in the playoffs. Nobody should be measuring Ireland against teams like France, England, and Sweden. But I expect them to be competitive again. Unfortunately, they're going to be without Denise O'Sullivan again, and she's a massive miss. And I wouldn't be surprised if Katie McCabe had an issue. Perhaps she looked very fatigued at the end of that game and was kind of holding her leg. Like she's just back from Australia. She flew to Australia 2 days after the end of the Women's Super League to play in a friendly, and then came back to Dublin. She's had a really grueling couple of weeks. But it's lessons for the other squad players who aren't used to maybe coming up against that caliber of player routinely. Like you learn so much from watching some of the Swedish players, and just how clever they are, and physically strong, and the nous that they have. So yeah, it was the most emphatic defeat they've suffered yet. But as I said, like there was definitely a lot of good stuff to take out of it, and particularly that opening half where they lived with them and they caused them problems, which is a step forward from the first two games, where they didn't really look likely to get a goal, bar from Megan's long throw-ins.
Yeah, let's see what the manager had to say. Eileen Gleeson speaking to Tony O'Donoghue at the Aviva Stadium after that match.
Eileen, here's the conundrum. You've lost a game 3-0. You've played so much better than you did in the two games against also very good opposition. Like, how are you making sense of this?
Yeah, well, I guess that's the development phase we're in, Tony, and this is the differences between the levels of the teams that we're in the group with at the moment. So yeah, so we're frustrated. We thought, certainly in the first half we could have been 2 goals up. We should have finished those chances. So we're not going to get many chances in these games, and we need to be more clinical there. We thought maybe in the first half we struggled a little in the midfield. We tried to fix that, and then you try to open up a little bit more and you get caught. So that is the conundrum, as you've said. But some parts of the performance happy with, some parts frustrated with. You could be going in 2-1 up, changes the game. So yeah, it's disappointing, but like you said, there's parts of it that you're somewhat happy with.
Compared to the last 2 games against France and against England, you did create chances. When you look at them, I mean, Lily Agg had a great opportunity early on, set up by Amber Barrett. Amber herself with the header. You must have been certain that was going in.
Yeah, I thought that both of them were going in. So, and the game is different then. Yeah, but I mean, these are top teams we're playing against, and you risk that if we venture up the field, which is what we want to do. We want to be higher up. We want to be aggressive, but this is it's the trade-off, and it's
the risk and reward, as Anya was saying.
And we have to get better at that, and then managing that openness then. But yeah, so I mean, we have to go again on Tuesday, and we have to focus on that and take the positive parts of the performance out of that and look at that, but also look at the areas that we got undone in as well.
Looking at Tuesday, Katie seemed to pull up there. Was that a possible hamstring?
No, she thinks she's fine. Oh, well, not that I know of, so don't be giving me any news here, Tony. But not that I've heard anything. So yeah, it's probably just a fatigue at this point of the game. But yeah, look, like you said, we'll just try to work on using the whole squad again. It is tough to turn around as quick. The 3 days, the fatigue, the extra trips then that Katie in particular had. Then of course, the loss of Denise and Russia.
Are they out for Tuesday as well?
Yeah, mostly. Well, Denise is out for Tuesday, so we know that. And yeah, so we work with the squad that we have, and we try to use their best attributes. We thought, Aoife Mannion did very well when she came on. Of course, Megan comes on, and the throw is always, a big favourite with the fans here. But unfortunately, we try to get as many throws as possible. But until you get them, we can't use them. But we have to focus on the performances.
Would you be tempted to use her earlier in the game, use that weapon?
I'd love to use the weapon all night, but it's again, it's the balancing act, it's fitness, it's other players, the other threats that you have, and kind of player manage that. So yeah, it's a broader decision, but yeah, when she comes on, obviously it's a big threat. But we want to have threats, and we want to finish those chances from open play as well. So yeah, mixed.
Well done tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that's Eileen Gleeson there speaking to Tony O'Donoghue on Friday, and of course she'll be leading the team to Stockholm on Tuesday, and as I said, that's live on RT2 and the RTÉ player. Amber Barrett was mentioned there in terms of her chance there, Anthony, and that's the header, but she was involved in many other ways, and it was kind of an interesting selection call because generally she's been used as an impact sub, despite the fact she scored what you could say arguably the most important goal in Irish women's history in Glasgow. But this was an opportunity for her that maybe wasn't as expected.
No, I think there was a bit of an inkling she would start, just because of the way Eileen had spoken to her, spoken about her in the press conferences in the run up to the game. She played 84 minutes, and that's the longest she's ever had on the pitch in her Ireland career. Like, she is almost always used off the bench for that sort of impact that she can bring. And yeah, she did well. I mean, the big thing was that there was two up front. There was two players up front, and that just straight away gave Sweden something to think about in terms of, like, when looking at the France and the England game, like, they just owned the ball up until sort of 10 yards inside the Irish half. You know, if Kira Cruz on her own up front trying to chase down 3 or 4 defenders. So it gave Ireland options, and it meant that going a bit more direct worked as well, because the two of them are good at holding the ball up. They're strong. It's just that little bit of class and composure in front of goal. You know, we've a man here who spent a career sticking the ball in the net in Conan. Like, you can't even quantify it, like the ice in your veins. It's you have it or you don't. And they're capable of scoring goals, the two of them, Kira Cruz and Amber Barrett. Amber Barrett's had a good season in Belgium with Standard Liège, but she sort of said it herself. We were speaking to her in the mix zone afterwards, and there's a big difference between scoring in Belgium and trying to score in a Euro qualifier against the 6th best team in the world. You know, it's just everything. There's so much racing through your brain. And she spoke about the chance. She was very open about it. But you can see the ball coming onto her head. And she said, I actually couldn't believe it. She's in the Aviva Stadium, starting an Ireland game. Her first start in a year. She started against, actually, no, it'd be longer than that, because she came off the bench against Zambia and scored 2 goals before the World Cup. So, like, it's a big deal, and there's all this stuff racing through your mind as the ball's coming over, and she just overcooked it, you know. So it's just, as I said, these are lessons that, like, it's easy to say we need to take our chances. No, it's easy to say that, but you just hope that they do glean a lot out of that game. Look, the experience of playing in a pressure cooker game like that, and knowing that when a big chance comes on, you have to take it. You have to almost teach yourself to be calm. As I know that sounds a bit odd, but it's Vera Pauw was a big exponent of it. She was against the idea of the Nations League, actually, because she thought it would deprive the sort of mid-tier teams of the opportunity to play the top sides as regularly as possible, because you get stuck in a League B. And Ireland probably are actually going to go back to League B if they finish bottom. They will get relegated back to League B. So they just have to try and glean as much out as they can of this experience, these 6 games. And I think they are, and I do think they will. I think as I said to you, like, I just think we'll see the benefit in the playoffs is the hope. But yeah, I thought Amber did quite well, and I think she might get another chance on Tuesday night, unless there's a tweak to the setup, and she maybe gives Leanne Kiernan a shot or something like that. But having the two up front definitely gave Ireland another dimension. I think there was enough good things came out of it for the coaching team to give it another crack.
Yeah, and before we touch on the Ireland men's team against Hungary, in terms of the friendly that's also on tomorrow and also live on RT2, RT Player, and also on radio as well. Conan, just in terms of, you know, you play Sweden on a Friday and then you travel and meet them on Tuesday, and you're playing the same team more or less. That can be quite tricky, I guess, when you have a fixture against the same team within short succession. Obviously, international football is a little bit different in that sense, maybe, than when it comes to clubs.
Yeah, I suppose I can only relate to in terms of playing European opposition in qualifiers, where you play them 1 week and obviously play them the following week. But I think it's just, yeah, they have to take so much credit from their performance, especially like Anthony said in the first half. Thought they were excellent. I think we have to applaud Eileen for trying to progress the style and the game plan, which worked incredibly well in that first half. Thought Jess Stapleton in the middle was very underrated. When she was taken off, the gap started to appear. Second and third goals were basically counterattacks. Too high of a press, I would have said. One person going, other people not, and then just getting tic-tacked around us for the second goal. And then the third goal, just absolute pace and power to get beyond our defence. But like, there's been a lot of positives to take from that performance. Jess Sue was incredible. I saw a stat actually where it came up that the running and her dynamic energy that she put in throughout the game, running 10.5 kilometers, I think it was, which is a lot in the women's game. And she was everywhere. She put in the great ball for Amber Barrett, who obviously should have scored, and she said that herself. But we've got to remember as well about the four regular starters that we're missing. Fahy, Littlejohn, Pyne, and our creative playmaker in Denise O'Sullivan. So a lot of heart to take from that performance. I know it's 4 days now until the game tomorrow in Sweden. It'll be a very difficult game, heading away from home. And yeah, I'd be worried about Katie a little bit in terms of fatigue. I thought she should have been taken off possibly with 10, 15 minutes to go when the game was beyond us, just to rest the legs for Tuesday. But because she did seem to really struggle in that last 5 minutes holding the back of her hamstring. But no, it's going to be another fight. It's all about learning and improving ahead of the playoffs. We do need to be more clinical with our passing and our scoring. We haven't scored yet, so that is crucial. But no, I think we're heading in the right direction with our play and with Eileen's game plan. And wish her a happy birthday today.
Well, happy birthday to her, I suppose. Anyway, so the coverage for Ireland against Sweden against Ireland, that is at 5 o'clock tomorrow at RT2 and RT Bear, and that's going to be followed directly by Ireland's men's team against Hungary, which is also on RT2 and the RT Player from 7:30, and will also be live on RT Radio 1 Extra. The squad was named by John O'Shea, who is interim manager, of course, last week, and the name that was jumping out to a lot of people, David, was Tom Cannon and his inclusion, because there was a perception as to why he'd been out of the picture, and obviously he has looked to dispel that in his press conference, which you attended.
Yeah, I suppose it was one of them where it was like straight into it. Normally you there might be a bit of, I don't know, softball questions.
Buttering him up.
Yeah, well, if I want a better phrase, yeah. But it was on everyone's minds, because like it was basically put out there. Because remember, what was the 21s camp he was in for the year before? Just last year when he came in and scored down in Cork, done really well. Seemed to be making a bit of an impact. And then the word was that he was kind of assessing his options, because obviously England, and he confirmed it wasn't just England. Obviously England had made contact with his agent. It was Lee Carsley. Lee Carsley came and wanted to have the conversation. Then obviously he's still obviously at Everton, he's doing well, he gets the move. I think there was a point he couldn't have referenced it himself where it was like he had tonsillitis, so he couldn't come in. And then it was obviously brought up as well that he's also now has this option of possibly going to England. And he kind of said, listen, he was just letting it be. He wasn't making a decision. It wasn't a big deal for him, and kind of reference that it was maybe blown up a bit more. But then it was, in fairness, it was put to him. It was like, well, if that was the case, like social media is a big thing for players now. It's not as if you haven't got that voice. If you want to get something across in your own words, or if you do want to make sure you get a message away across exactly how you want it, that platform is there for you. And obviously that silence is what effectively kind of, and that vacuum is what kind of maybe some people, let's be honest, like some people just forgot about it very quickly. Like, you know what I mean? He went to, obviously got the move to Leicester. He had bad injury. He kind of struggled. He got a few goals around January, but like it's not as if this is he's clearly a talented player. He wouldn't be at the level he is if he wasn't. But like I don't think it's quite at the same level of, say, a Jack Grealish or a Declan Rice in terms of where they were at, in terms of what they were doing in their club career. I say the more casual person might have actually not even been fully aware of the situation of what was happening, but it just kind of meant, and I know it was something that the FAI were keen to do, get him up as soon as possible and not let it be something that lingers on. He's obviously said he's committed. He spoke about his family roots, and you obviously take him on face value. What was there, he did seem genuine. It's one of those typical thing of, coming over, spending the summers, wanting to spend time with grandparents and stuff, and like you couldn't not take it at face value. You could tell by him he was honest in what he was saying. It was just but then. Like I said it to him as well. Like kind of not that there is that degree of you have to understand that. I suppose like football's a business at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like these things from the agent, if England 21s are coming to have a conversation, and he grew up in England and he kind of feels that affinity. Of course, you're gonna have it, and then he can't. It's different. It's easy for us, or what it would be for me. I'm trying to kind of be a bit more open and kind of open-minded about it. It's easy for me to say, as someone who born and raised in Ireland and all my family are Irish, that I'd have no interest in playing for someone else. But of course, if you are from a family that would be mixed or would have different nationalities in it, of course it's going to be something that you're going to have to be open to. And so the fact is that obviously John O'Shea had to chat with him, and he was happy to come in for these games. And you would imagine he's going to play some point. Whether or not he'll start, I'm not so sure. But if he's able to make an impact, and to be honest, all you want is the players coming in and showing that they're capable and willing, and that's all you want from a player at this point, you know.
Yeah, he was saying all the right things at the press conference in any case anyway. But his agent, interestingly enough, is David Moyes' brother, Kenny, as well.
Well, he was asked if there's any chance of any word from his brother about whether David Moyes might be getting the Ireland job. He said he had no idea.
Yeah, I think that might involve quite steep drop in wages if he's going from West Ham, from the diet at West Ham to whatever is on offer here. But in terms of Tom Cannon, Conan, anyway, in regards to his placing within the squad, obviously they're going to get a good look at him with the senior squad here, but it's really more of a depth question rather than somebody who's going to be coming in and really threatening one of the starting places, especially with Adam Ida and Troy Parrott in great form. I know Parrott was only playing on Sunday, so probably mightn't start against Hungary in any case.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back to David's point, I don't know. I just prefer when a player is honest about a situation in terms of saying, look, England would be his first choice, and that has to be the case. He's born in England, got his move to Everton, is just waiting to see if there's a possible chance of him playing for his country he was born in. I think that's absolutely fine to come out and say that. And you're telling me that if Gareth Southgate lost 15 strikers now in the next 6 weeks, on the next week or two, that he wouldn't go and change his allegiance to England? Of course he would. So I just think we need to be players need to be more honest about this. We can't be sucked into the likes of Jack Grealish and Declan Rice scenario again and thinking that he wants to play for Ireland. We're the second option, and I think that's fair to say. Born in England, chance doesn't come, so he comes and plays for Ireland, and we happily accept that. Sorry, Dave, you going to say?
I was going to say, Joe, what? You 100% agree with you, and I don't know whether it's a certain advice. Genuinely, like the way fans are now, and everyone knows the situation. Do you know what I mean? Everyone knows that. Like as you say, I think that was almost as if it almost got the backup of certain people in the room, and even me. I was thinking that exact thing. So just come out and say it. Like, you know what I mean? Like the way the country is. In order, like everyone understands, like people, there's different nationalities involved and all. If you actually come out and say, do you know what, like I got the chance to play for Ireland at underage when obviously you wasn't on the radar for England. I felt like family were thrilled. Obviously you went, but then if you say, well, do you know what, you got to a stage where actually England were showing an interest. I think a lot of people would actually admire that. What Con was saying, admire that honesty and just being upfront. And I don't think people will say, oh, you should never play for Ireland again, or you should never have it. If like. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's what got the backup of so many people, and me included, with the Declan Rice thing, was he was so one way, and then as soon as he got the sniff, he was gone. Do you know what I mean? That's what I think. Whereas if he actually had been more upfront and tried to sell himself as a certain thing, that's what I think maybe people would get more frustrated with. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like what Conor was saying. People understand. Do you know, it's not a straightforward thing where like, oh, you play for X, Y, or Z. Like it's not anymore. That's just not the nature of how it is. And I think Ireland as well, the player how we've benefited down the line, like we can't really argue with that.
We've had as well, David, the Sammy Smodic's situation with Hungary, where the Hungary boss had a right go on publicly at Smodic's and accused him of leading him down the garden path and using the link to Hungary as leverage to help his international prospects. And Sammy Smodic's came out and very emphatically said that that's just not true. You know, we've always been focused on Ireland. So I think the way of the world now, like this is not a unique thing. And you know, look, if you look at our population, we're so diverse that there's going to be loads more of this. There's going to be loads more players coming through our underage ranks who are eligible for 2, 3, 4 countries. You know, so yeah, maybe we do have to be a little more measured in how we look at all of this.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so go on, Conan.
Sorry, you know, I was just going to finally answer your question, Raf, on the attacking options that we have. But like Schmodix with his career that he's had or the season that he's had in the Championship, obviously, and his performances in the last window were pretty impressive as well. Adam Ida scoring the winner in a Scottish Cup final, and in fairness, he's got a bit part play in the Celtics career up until recently, and but he'll be full of confidence. Can't see Troy Parrott being involved, obviously, with yesterday's heroics, well, near heroics of keeping his side in the Eredivisie. And yeah, so I do think Cannon will get a run. I don't think he'll start. I think he'll come on. He'll get his couple of caps. But it's the September games against England. It'll be interesting to see if he's there.
Yeah, which I suppose, David, in a way makes this window kind of strange because we're in this weird holding pattern. We don't know what direction the future is going in terms of the management and the direction and everything else. And there's these sort of tough games against Hungary and Portugal at the same time. You're going to get a look at the players. And maybe the only thing is the playing squad is fairly settled and there's not going to be too many aside from the likes of Tom Cannon who are going to be sort of brought in. I know there's other names like David Harrington just as an extra depth in goal with Bazunu sort of away, and then a couple of the under 21s getting called in as well, although that seems to be standard practice in recent times anyway.
Yeah, I just saw as well, isn't it, today that in the Boston Loyals coming in.
And Josh Keeley.
And Josh Keeley, and I think Andrew Amamadeli has had to drop out. Like you're saying there, Raf, about the holding pattern. I'll be honest, and it was something that I said to John O'Shea last week at the squad announcement, and a few of the players were doing media on Friday. Just for me, and the lads might feel differently. I just feel there's a massive sense of drift of where the national team are at the moment, and just like a lack of purpose because of we haven't got like a manager. Like these games, like, and even March, like they should have been the games where the new permanent manager is in place. And John O'Shea kind of touched on it. He said himself, you know, if he was the permanent manager, or if there had been a permanent manager the last little while, you can be talking about what these games mean for the future. Whereas we don't know essentially where we're standing. And like I just don't think this can be allowed to linger on. It's just like this whole thing of, you know, the process of appointing the manager. The fact that it's been allowed to get to this point when, let's be honest, everybody knew last summer what was coming down the line after the Greece game. You know what I mean? This is not something that just crept up on the FAI where they needed to make an appointment. And like the rights and wrongs of how things have happened over the last few months to get to a situation in the summer where, let's be honest, the summer games at the best of times can be a tough sell for when you're not going to a major tournament, because obviously players coming in, it's at the end of a long season. It's just very, very tough. Do you know what I mean? It's just very, very tough to get any kind of a rhythm or a kind of a purpose to them games. When you've got a point where the manager and some of the players said, like I think it was and Stevens making the point like they want to do, or could have been Jason, like it was on Friday anyway, making the point like they want to do everything to put John O'Shea in the picture to get this job. They obviously felt comfortable in terms of the work that he's been doing, and they have that sense. And like it was very interesting just listening to like people talking, and like even just on and off the record about the impact of, say, Paddy McCarthy and the kind of what he's bringing to the sessions and what he's doing with the players and getting a hold of them, getting a grip on them. Like he seems to have made a big impact on things. And even like that view of, say, John O'Shea as the coach and the manager, he does seem to be someone who's already, who's referenced back in March, he's putting these building blocks in place that, and a system in place that, like if they had been successful back in March in terms of getting results, or if they are now, it's difficult to kind of dismantle it. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the kind of the characters that are involved there. But it just kind of feels, and this is for someone who'll be at the game tomorrow working on it, like it's kind of, you want to see an Ireland team be truthful. You want to see an Ireland team go out and play really, really well and lay down a marker and then put it in front of the FAI and say, well, you know, like this process has gone on for long enough. There's a manager there who's been able to get a performance and has had experience now as a coach and as a manager with these players. Like, I just don't see how you can allow this to linger on even more. Like the thought, like sounds, all the rest of it, you know, could be a manager coming in after the Euros. You can't allow that. You can't allow thinking on the basis, oh, you might get someone after the Euros. Like goalposts will just move again. Like there's a real lack of just decisive action on this, and that doesn't mean you act for the sake of it. It's actually making sure you get decision, because like what I'm saying there, I just feel there's a massive sense of drift at the moment unless you have that figurehead really driving what the national team is. And no matter what you say about, obviously things ended badly for Stephen Kenny, he was getting that. He was getting that sense of what people could get behind and where it was going. You know, ultimately he wasn't able to get the results to back it up to stay in the job, and that's what's needed next.
Yeah, and just looking at the squad in terms of like where it's at, Conan, obviously there's an interesting mix up front. I think centre back is always a strong area, but you know, Enda Stevens was mentioned there, and looking at the full back situation, it's a very aging component. There aren't a lot of at least in terms of what's been selected there. Younger talents emerging. I mean, you've Seamus Coleman obviously as captain, Matt Doherty there as well on one side, and then Robbie Brady and Enda Stevens, which are more, they're not. It's not really about the longer term future in that sense.
No, I suppose you have Liam Scales as well, that he could possibly play in that position, which he has done it over his career at Shamrock Rovers anyway, not really at Celtic this season, where he's been brilliant at centre back. Yeah, you're right. It's an aging back line. Well, certainly in those areas. The likes of Coleman and Doherty, like you said, and then Brady and Stevens. But who else is there to come through? And it all goes back to funding and where Republic of Ireland and football is in this country. That's what it all comes down to. Where we'll be in 10, 15 years time. We need to look at the long-term plan of this, not just window to window of international football. It has to come from grassroots through to League of Ireland academies and right through into international setups, looking at infrastructures and all this. We've been talking about this for years, but the plan is put in place and needs to be implemented now by government. And we're seeing the cause of, or the lack of funding that we've had in terms of our football, with our performances over the last number of years. Our players aren't playing. Most of our players aren't playing at the top level. I think we have one player in the midfield and forwards in the squad that plays Premier League football, and that's going to be Will Smallbone. I think everybody else is in the Championship or playing in other leagues across Europe. It's not good enough, and then we expect to be playing at major tournaments. It's just not going to happen. We're playing, and people probably are looking at Hungary tomorrow and thinking, "Geez, we have a good chance here." They're unbeaten in 14 international games.
Yeah, very good side.
Very good side. Beaten by Italy was the last time they were beaten. They've beaten Germany. They've beaten England at Wembley 4-0. So it's not a case that we just turn up tomorrow and put on an unbelievable performance, which is good. We're up against a really good side who's a good, who get out of their group in the Euros and go far in the competition, given their form. But I think we just, like, getting back to the point about that wing backs. It's an area that we've been very strong in, and over the years with the likes of Coleman and Doherty and Stevens, McLean, Brady, we have been strong in that area. It's just the lack of players that are going to come through. You're looking at maybe possible Sam Curtis, maybe, who's done really well at St. Pat's and made his breakthrough this season at Sheffield United. But again, he's Championship player next season. We need to have players playing in the top leagues, big leagues in Europe, in order for us to compete at international level. And Stephen Kenny lost his job because of it. I think, like David said, he had us all backing him. He had a real good structure and possession based football in place. Just didn't have the players to implement it. And we're just going to be like that for the next 5-6 years, no matter who you get in.
Yeah, I think it's even to the point that actually James McLean hasn't been ruled out in terms of a U-turn from some comments I've seen John O'Shea mentioned there last week. But final point on the Ireland men's team, Anthony, and this is Caoimhin Kelleher. Of course, we found out he loves the darts, and fair play to him. But the other point as well is, of course, that age-old question that's been asked, and probably now even intensified because Gavin Bazunu is out injured for quite a long time with his Achilles issue. The future at Liverpool and trying to get into a position where he's going to be a number one somewhere, and unlikely to be at Anfield once Arne Slot comes in.
Yeah, and sorry, I don't mean to wrap back on another tangent, but just to pick up on the point that the two lads were making first around the wider issues of the game. A few days ago, kind of sums it up, Raf, really. Like the FAI issued a graphic. It was quite widely shared. Just sort of imploring people to talk to their local councillors, or take the opportunity to talk to their local councillors and highlight some of the issues that we have with the game from a grassroots level. 27% growth in girls football in the last 2 years. Only 33% of clubs have women's changing facilities. So again, like, just I'm talking about Ireland and what they need to do to beat France and Sweden and England. It's like, but what they've achieved is incredible. It's despite all of this. It's despite such a poor infrastructure. And look, we could talk for another hour just about that, but it's just interesting. It's just worth bringing up. I'm sure a lot of people may have seen that graphic and probably shared it themselves on social media, but it's just another reminder of where we are. But sorry, yeah, in regards to Caoimhin Kelleher, I think it's about a year ago. I'm sure David was probably at the press conference as well when Stephen Kenny basically said that he was gone, that he was leaving Liverpool. He expected him to go last summer. And actually, I think staying has worked out really well for him. Like, he will leave Liverpool having won trophies, but he's had it's an unusual career really for a number 2 goalkeeper. Like, the trophies he's won with Liverpool, certainly the 2 League Cups, the Carabao Cups, like, he's been an enormous part of those successes, a really important part, central to them. He's not being peripheral in that.
Scored the winner, didn't he? He scored the winner.
He scored the winning penalty against Chelsea. Then he played the most recent one against Chelsea. And he's really part of that story under Klopp. You know, he's on. They have a wall at their training ground of the goalkeeper's wall of any goalkeeper who's won a trophy with Liverpool. They're all on it. Ray Clements and Grobbelaar and Alisson and Caoimhin Kelleher. So he's certainly left his mark on the club. But it is time for him now. You know, it is time. His stock is very high. He's excellent. He's an excellent goalkeeper. He's a Premier League goalkeeper. Where he goes will be interesting. But you'd have to think, like, there's got to be suitors for someone like him. He's so good. He's arguably better in some aspects of his game than Alisson. I'm not saying he's better than Alisson, but I think his kicking is better than Alisson. He's 2-footed and he's a cleaner kicker of the ball. So yeah, it will be interesting to see where he goes. But I think we're at the end of the road now. He sort of confirmed, I think, today at the press conference, David, the other day, that he's on the way.
Yeah, like, because obviously he did that interview with the Athletic earlier last week, so that obviously kind of brought it to when he was like, because it was right what Anthony was saying. He was right. He wanted to go last season. He went to the club and said, "Yeah, listen, it's time." He knew himself even last year. And Klopp had basically said, "No, listen, we need you," because I don't know if they maybe had a sense, because I think Alisson might have even gone into pre-season with Liverpool carrying an injury. So I don't know if they even had a sense beforehand that maybe Alisson might not be 100% right for the whole year, and they had a feeling that they would need him at a certain time. I definitely don't think they would have felt he was going to play to go to 30 games. It wasn't a 26, 27 games. It was, I think, even why he was so open to even saying that it's time now to be number 1 is because he felt, not that he needed to prove it to himself, but I think he's realised now that he's proven to a certain calibre of club that he can play consistently for a team like Liverpool and like just be at that level. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't as if they were counting. Even though when Alisson came back, he was straight back into the team. That's probably Klopp's obviously loyalty and the fact that the hierarchy and the meritocracy of a number 1 goalkeeper, you do kind of resume your position. But I don't think people at the club would have been like counting down the days they need to get Alisson back, because he did acquit himself so well. And it was interesting listening to him on Friday, how he was kind of making that point, because he always had that inner belief, like any player, no matter what level they're at professional football, are going to need that to do what they do and continue on. But he more so felt that was when he proved to those on the outside of what he was capable for. And now it's going to be just interesting to see where he lands. Do you know what I mean? No pun intended as a goalkeeper there, but like where he will end up. And because he sort of said, listen, he's open if a move comes about to Europe. That would be something that would be of interest to him, where he's not just dead set on staying in Britain or in the Premier League. But then he referenced it again. You know, he still has to have the conversation with Arne Slot, obviously the new manager. There is an overhaul of the goalkeeping department. A few people have left, like the head of goalkeeping has left there, like the assistant goalkeeping coach has left. I think Taffarel is staying on the staff. There is going to be a bit of an overhaul of the staff there. And he still has 2 years left in his contract, and he was open to it. He's like, the final decision still isn't his. He wants to be a number 1. He'll push to move if he's told he's not going to be the number 1 at Liverpool. But the club still hold the cards, you know. But the fact what will be in his benefit, well, what will be in his favour will be the fact that with PSR rules and stuff like that, like any money Liverpool get from him, which are probably talking in the 25 to 30 million bracket, you would imagine, considering what he did last year, is pure profit for them. So it would make sense for them this year, when he still has 2 years left on his deal, to do it now and get the full value for him if they view Alisson, which, let's be honest, he still is, that he's still the number 1 of staying ahead of him, you know.
Yeah, he'll be starting against Hungary tomorrow night. As I said, live on RT2 and RT Player as well. It's also another friendly against Portugal. That'll be next Tuesday as well. But League of Ireland wise, Shamrock Rovers 2-0 winners against Drogheda United to get back on track. And then a stunning result at Tolka Park, where Shells were beaten 2-1 by Sligo Rovers. St. Pat's under Stephen Kenny now, and he has his first win since going in as manager, beating Galway United 2-1. Waterford continuing their great start this season. Keith Long's team beating Bows 2-1, and then Dundalk and Derry drawn 0-0, and that's the first point under John Daly. And starting on Shells and Sligo and Conan, I don't think anybody would have seen this coming given where Shells are at the moment, but Sligo Rovers, like I suppose one can tell like how much they battled because they had 6 yellow cards throughout the game. And also, I think one thing that will please John Russell probably is the fact that unlike against Derry, where they'd gone 2-1 up and then got pegged back, this time they did find a way to stop what is a potent enough Shells team.
Yeah, I think it's Sligo. They've been very inconsistent over the last number of games, losing the likes of Max Mata and Reen Schmidt as well over the last number of weeks. People probably would have suspected Shelbourne to go and win the game quite comfortably. And there's this narrative going around as well about Shells coming up against non-Dublin clubs and performing poorly against them, yet they've won 4 times this season against Waterford, Galway, Dundalk, and Sligo, down in Sligo. So I don't agree with that narrative whatsoever.
That was tough. Sorry, Conan, that was tough for being saying that. Like,
but that's just because, but he's just saying that to defend his players and trying to push and like nearly trying to get them to push on because he knows they're up for it. He probably sees in the dressing room himself about, I don't know, about the Dublin derbies and how the look in their eyes or whatever it is. But it's not. It's untrue, you know. But having said that, you would expect Shells to go and win the game on Friday, especially after the win against Shamrock Rovers and Tala last week. You just expect them to go on and win it, and when they don't, it kind of just makes you even think how the league is as a whole and how inconsistent that it is, and that Shamrock Rovers are just gonna get back on top and go and win their 5th in a row. I felt like that all season. I still feel like that now, even after the defeat last week in Tala. But Shells would be terribly disappointed not to come away from Friday night with 3 points. Duff did say after the game that he was happy with the performance. It was just the missed chances they had, a couple of one-on-ones. Sean Boyd missed one. He wasn't happy with the defending. I'd flip it and say I thought Sligo's goals were excellently worked. Hartman's brilliant wing play where he cuts in off the flank and beats his man. It's the timing of the pass, timing of the run, absolute perfection, and a lovely finish by him. And ultimately won them the game. Sligo need to do now what Shelbourne didn't do and back that up against Drogheda United. And if they do, they go 10 points clear of that relegation playoff spot and motivation in itself for the players to go and win that game this afternoon. So, yeah, disappointing from a Shells point of view. John Russell will be delighted, though. I think we need to give Sligo a lot of credit considering their inconsistencies this season. And if they can back that up now with back-to-back wins, it'll be huge. It'll be a huge week for them.
Yeah, Ed McGinty having a really good game towards the end as well to preserve that lead as well. From the Shells point of view, David, I mean, there was a lot of focus on Damien Duff in the build-up, and that's because of the interview you did with Richie Sadler, which I have to say is excellent and very much recommended some really interesting insights in that podcast interview. And I think there was one bit that jumped out to me was something about, I think, him dressing up as a stormtrooper to come into training. Just these, from Star Wars or whatever, just things to kind of mix it up. And you're kind of thinking now you might have to come into training now in a Darth Vader uniform to try and G them up, but obviously they've their game against Bows today called off, so they'll have to wait in terms of trying to rebound from it. But from a Shell's point of view, he seemed relatively calm, as Conan said afterwards, which was kind of surprised at, apart from calling the defending for the goal is awful.
Yeah, it's just, like the last couple of weeks. I think it was wasn't it? I think it was Joey O'Brien who comes in as a stormtrooper, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a Joey, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, just for purposes of clarity there, that's very important because of the Star Wars. I know, in fairness, if there's one topic that would get people writing and complaining if you get something wrong, it'd be Star Wars fans. You can imagine so. But yeah, like you go back, like obviously I was at the game in Tala when Shells beat Rovers, and in my match report, I actually said I thought it was a statement win in terms of going there and just in the nature of how they won the game and and stuff was like, and even Duffy was a lot calmer about it. Maybe listen, score 2 penalties, the game was pretty much won with 20 minutes to go. So maybe you're not going to have that same sense of elation as you had at Richmond Park at the start of the week when they scored last minute, and scored was in 95th minute. Obviously that's a totally different maybe sense of emotion. But it was just, even for Duffy, even said the same. He was like, maybe it was in his own head, he didn't want to be getting the fans like not overexcited or maybe believing too much, but like he even said himself in that Rovers game, a sense of calm about it. And as much as that, and that's probably what's going to be needed in the running, because let's be honest, like no matter, like they had a great start to the season, but it's clear now like Shells aren't going to be one of those teams who will go on a winning run of maybe 5, 6 or 7 games or even an unbeaten run. They're going to probably have these sticky moments, but I definitely think that I don't think anybody else below them will be capable of doing it. And I know it's mad even saying it about Rovers, but no matter what people are saying, I just don't, how this season has gone. And Stephen Bradley said it himself after that Shells game. It was actually the first time he kind of maybe said, he goes, listen, just because they've come back before previously and done it doesn't necessarily mean it's definitely going to happen this time. He goes, they know they're capable of it, but they have to go out and show that they can. And Rovers have shown enough kind of vulnerability again this year that they will still have that. Europe still has to come around again, and you kind of wonder, like, does Europe now actually take on, for Stephen Bradley and for Rovers, greater significance than doing the 5 in a row? You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, you win the league, it's going to help you qualify for Europe, obviously in terms of the champions path and getting through, but that's going to bring a different dynamic this year. And like, I don't think Stephen Bradley has ever shown a sense, because obviously he's torn down jobs where he maybe had that personal ambition will be overriding what the main targets are for the club. But if maybe you get to this point for him as a manager, and would a European campaign just see his stock rise even more and they put more emphasis on it? Because it was something, not to kind of be a bit long-winded about it, but it was something he said even at the start of last year that stuck in his head, where they did prime how pre-season went and kind of maybe allowed for a slower start to a season because they wanted to hit the ground running for Europe. And that was last season. This season, again, you would imagine things are the same. And like as I was saying, like his ambitions as a manager and the profile it would give him if Rovers were to have a seriously impressive campaign. They've obviously already been there, but it was at a stage where qualifying and winning the league was still 100% the priority. I kind of wonder, maybe has that changed a little bit, and when we see Rovers maybe trying to put a bit more emphasis on that European kind of progress this season, which may then allow Shelbourne possibly a dirty, although dirty are so frustrating. Like, and where they're at, like, I'll be honest, but like, that's so frustrating. I'm not even a dirty fan. I can only imagine what it's like up there. But even for where they should be at in their evolution as a team, like, I'll be honest, they should be doing more. They really should be putting more pressure on. Like, they're in the mix, but like, if there was one team who would be capable of that, who I thought the season would have been capable, I thought it would have been more so Derry. I did think Shells would challenge, but yeah. I actually got a bit distracted here, just how frustrated I was with Derry.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Derry. I was going to talk about Rovers as well, but like, let's start with Derry then, because they drew 0-0 at Dundalk, Conan, and of course there's probably a bit of a slight managerial bounce from the Dundalk point of view. But when you actually look at the game, Derry created very little, and Dundalk, and particularly Jamie Gullen, were at the heart of most of the chances.
Yeah, and the thing with Derry is, and just touching what David says there, I can't. These words will probably bite me over the next year or two, but I can't see them winning a league playing on the surface that they're playing on. Now, you might say, well, Dundalk done it. I just think it's different. I don't know. Like, their home form isn't great. Like, they're playing Waterford this afternoon, and I've no confidence in them they'll pick up 3 points. It's not a guarantee.
But isn't their home form quite strong this year? It's just whenever they leave that particular surface and play anywhere else, they seem to drop points. I know Dundalk's an artificial pitch as well, but it seems that the home form is actually okay, weirdly enough. And it was a problem the last couple of years.
Yeah, but that's it though. They're probably focusing too much on that. And then when they go away from home, which their away form was unbelievable last season, it was the best in the league as far as I know. I just can't see it happening. I just don't think that it's that they're strong enough. In terms of the mindset, in terms of defensively, I know they kept a clean sheet the other night and against Dundalk, but yeah, I'd worry about, like I said at the start of the season, like if Hubin's on song, they they could win the league. But without him, they won't. And if he's not scoring goals, I don't think they'll be up there either. Like in terms of really, really challenging, putting pressure on. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a feeling that I've had for the last number of years about that pitch. And even though their form might be strong in it this season, I really don't feel that they're capable of winning the Premier Division as it is with the players that they have.
Yeah, and then just on Shamrock Rovers, then against Drogheda, Conan. I mean, that's an important win in a sense because they've been very all over the place. Now, whether it's they can push on and build on it is the other question. But seemed to Drogheda towards the end were almost the ones putting a bit of pressure in the last segment of the game. Obviously, at that point, Rovers seemed to have it won though.
Yeah, 3 defeats in a row now for Drogheda. It's like against Galway, the 2 promoted sides, Galway, Waterford, and then obviously against Shamrock Rovers. So. And then heading down to the showgrounds this evening. So they'll be trying to stop the rot there for sure. Talk of Kevin Doherty's job being on the line. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's doing an unbelievable job there. Part-time squad playing in a full-time league. The only squad that's part-time. This season anyway. I know they've plans to go full-time from next season on. But Shamrock Rovers, from a personnel point of view, I think it was a really important victory. Makeshift back 3 as well. Corey O'Sullivan, only 18 years old, playing his first game this season. In terms of his first start, he got a couple of appearances, 2 appearances I think he made before that, playing the 90 minutes. Really, really impressive. Mark Poon playing, as I said, in defence. But what I liked about Shamrock Rovers, I suppose, was their goals. And that's where their quality really shows. Aaron Green's unbelievable ball through for Johnny Kenny, and then Graham Burke's bit of magic in the edge of the box and putting it into the top corner. Obviously, Graham Burke can do that in his sleep. And I think now with the injuries that Shamrock Rovers have had over the last number of months, that has affected their results. There's absolutely no doubt about it. When you're playing at when you're not playing at maximum capacity, it's always difficult. But when you're playing nearly with players completely out of position and still picking up points, when they get everybody back up and running, couple of wins under their belt, you can see them kick on. And I just think that's what's going to happen this year. I hear what David says in terms of Europe and how important it is for Stephen Bradley, but also for Shamrock Rovers, and financially too. I think it's really important that they do well in Europe this season. I just really feel that they'll kick on because they have the experience of it. They have the players, if fit now, if they all get back fit and they're really capable of going on a run. And I can see them lifting the trophy again at the end of the season.
Yeah, and then Pats against Galway now. That's Alex Nolan's late goal, David. I mean, the I suppose the main headline is it's Stephen Kenny's first win since coming in as manager, but very hard fought, something I'm sure he's going to be pleased with, because towards the end, after Lombotto's equaliser, it looked like Galway were the ones in the ascendancy and Pats were kind of hanging on, and then they do find a winner.
Yeah, like I was watching that game at home on LOI TV, and you're kind of thinking the nature of how the first 2 games have gone for Stephen Kenny. This is a serious test of the team here now, and obviously to get ahead, Galway pull back, and then sometimes I don't know whether what Pats were expecting, whether you expect them to be able with that Galway would then just sit back and be happy with the point. But as you're saying, like Galway showed the initiative. They took the game and they had chances as well. There was a couple of moments, a couple of good serious blocks. Jamie Lennon, I think wasn't it? Made a great box in the around the 6-yard box. But then probably where Pats are at, and there's been good moments that they're kind of that team who can have a team of moments at the moment. They haven't got that full on balance, I don't think, quite right, or structure where that team is at, but they still have players capable of maybe producing something. And again, like the goal kind of summed it up in terms of, like, obviously probably could have been a penalty on Keane just before it, but then like gets composure again, quick feet, ball in, nice little dummy by Mason Mead, and then the finish by Nolan. Like that's where kind of Pats are at, where they can maybe win a game in those moments, and that's going to be the test for, I suppose, over the next little while for Stephen Kenny. He kind of was open about it after the game in the follow-up quotes, talking about obviously already putting plans in place for the future and players coming to the club. It's about replicating what the best teams have done. Obviously his Dundalk team have been, where obviously of the last couple of decades the best team in the league has the sin. Although I'm sure Conan will, his team vintage of Patson around 2013 will argue with that, and I probably would myself. But in terms of that longevity, that's what Pats are looking for now under Kenny, is to kind of mold the team in where it's not just those kind of maybe kind of sporadic moments that will win you a game. It's what's probably going to be needed for the next little while, and it'll be needed against Dundalk later. I'll be there at Richmond Park for it, but that's going to be the challenges. Can Pats become that kind of more of a functioning team where they kind of, you expect them, like Colin was saying, he doesn't know what maybe to expect from Derry in their home game when they play Waterford. You kind of, those games against Galway, you expect for Pats, if they're on it, they'll win the game comfortably. That's where Rovers, even though there's been kind of, they've had to fight back in seasons, you still had that feeling with Rovers where if Rovers turn up, they'll win the game no matter what. Just how the kind of almost the processes that Bradley has instilled in them there. That's what Dundalk were like under Stephen Kenny. It's like what Cork City's, what John Caulfield's side were like as well with Cork. That's where Pat need to get to now as well.
Yeah, for return to the Champions League, Watford beating Bowes as well, and Conan, I suppose this one was all about, from a Waterford point of view, again, brilliant form for them, but the Pattison-Amond connection, because one created for the other, both of those goals.
Yeah, for Amond's goal again, just unbelievable striker, centre forward play. He made his run initially, didn't happen, comes back, keeps himself on side, and for the ball in, tap in from 3 or 4 yards. Double figures for the season already, and a shining light down in the RSC. He's been absolutely magnificent, and by all accounts, on the pitch, obviously, as he's seen, but off the pitch as well, has been absolutely colossal. 5 wins from 6 now, 15 points from a possible 18 for Waterford. So they're heading up to Derry now, and very confident. So it's going to be just from where they are in the league, 4th place. And what I've really noticed as well is that the Bowes connection to Waterford's backline. Obviously, Keith Long's gone in, and he has some of the players that he has worked with at Bohemians, like Darragh Leahy and Grant Horton, Radkowski, and Robbie McCourt too. So there's a good few players there that have played for Bohemians and under Keith Long in the backline. And they're performing really well. Some really good individual performances as well. Connor Parsons and McMenemy as well. Who was excellent up in Tala a couple of weeks ago. Waterford are doing extremely well, and similar enough to Galway, with the 2 promoted sides are kind of have been fantastic this season. Before Friday's defeat to Pats, Galway went on a 9-game unbeaten run. So, and it's great to see, but it puts all the other teams underneath them under a bit of pressure, because they're probably expecting those 2 teams to be the ones that will struggle this season. So now there's a massive dogfight at the bottom of the table to see who scrapes out of it.
Yeah, and finally, before we go, the Champions League final, Real Madrid winning their 15th title at the top of Europe's elite club competition, beating Borussia Dortmund 2-0 at Wembley in the decider. And Anthony, I know you mentioned it earlier in the podcast, just in terms of taking chances. And, I'd come in thinking, Real Madrid, they're not necessarily going to walk it. They don't tend to walk Champions League finals in a way, but they always find a way to win. But then I saw how Borussia Dortmund were playing, and you kind of get your hopes up for a really good game.
Yeah, it was a good game. I think Dortmund lost it. I think they will. That's going to sting them for a long time, because they did so much right. I thought the setup looked really good. They largely shackled Bellingham and even Toni Kroos. Vinicius Junior was. They dulled his impact for a lot of the game. Like, I know we got a goal at the end, but it was a gift. It was an individual error in the second half. And like, it's so frustrating. It was so frustrating. Not that I had any skin in the game, but you naturally lean towards the underdog, and I think that's Real Madrid's 15th European Cup. So it would have been nice to see Dortmund get their name on the trophy. And in the first half, you're thinking, they had been brilliant, but I go back to the Ireland match. Like, when an underdog doesn't capitalize on moments of dominance in a game, and when they miss really good chances, you always feel like they're going to pay for it. They're going to pay the price for it. And the set pieces have been a bit of an Achilles heel for Dortmund. Like the goal, Carvajal is about 5'9" or 5'8" or something. Like, he had actually got a free header from a corner earlier in the second half before he scored. He peeled away and got a free header, and he headed it over the bar. And the goal was pretty much a carbon copy of that. They allowed it to happen again, and at that level in a game like that, that's just you can't do that. That's unforgivable. It's such a frustrating way for them to lose. And the second goal again is just an individual error, but it's the kind of sloppiness that's been in them. It's been in them. There's a reason they finished fifth in the Bundesliga, Raf. But it's a shame because they played very, very well, and it is that thing like Real Madrid, or it's in the DNA and all of that, and they always find a way. But like they didn't play well. They were just kind of let off the hook by Dortmund, not punishing them and not taking their chances. So yeah, it's a painful one for them, because if you go into a game like that and you're outplayed by a Real Madrid, it's kind of easier to take. But when you are the better team, and it's just bad misses and individual errors that cost you, it probably hurts that bit more.
Yeah, 6 Champions League titles in the last decade for Real Madrid. And I suppose, David, there's a sense that this is going to be a bit of an era of dominance as well, because Mbappe is going to be announced at any time this week, it seems. And also they have the likes of Endrick, the young Brazilian, as well. And, that's filling areas of the squad. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily this is all going to gel very, very well. There's always a risk. And losing a player like Toni Kroos as well, maybe there's that might get overshadowed a little, and people mightn't realise just what an impact a player like that can have in the centre of midfield. But everything is primed there for Real Madrid to dominate, not just in Spain, where Barcelona are a bit of a basket case at the moment, but just across Europe as well.
You would think so, especially as you said, like domestically, like they're probably going to be adding Kylian Mbappe in the next week or so. That's probably going to be announced, isn't it? I suppose if you're looking at it from the point of view of the rest of Europe, obviously Man City are still strong. You would expect City to still be able to challenge, and don't forget, like Madrid needed penalties. Got through on penalties in that game, so like they have got that edge in terms of, maybe I should say in there, like wasn't it 6 in 10, maybe that sense of just a feeling of composure maybe at this level. But I still don't think that they're head and shoulders above everyone who's still there. Like I still don't think there's enough, like even in the game in the semi against Bayern Munich, like it took an amazing comeback to get over the line. Like there's still, I still think there are those enough margins there at that top level where it's no guarantee. You'd still think them as favourites, maybe obviously because of that pedigree, but it's not as if like, oh my God, they're so much better than everybody else. Like, and then there is that, maybe they will become that if Mbappe comes in and he just slots in perfectly. But it's going to need a manager like, say, Ancelotti, or how long he wants to stay on for there. You would think he's probably the first manager in God knows how many years at Madrid under Perez, especially, where is maybe you would think maybe free of the risk of getting sacked. You know what I mean? You would think he's going to be there for as long as he wants, but he's clearly, how he manages that squad and is able to, like, how he uses it and give players certain minutes here and there and keep them happy. Success obviously is a major part of that. For as long as players are going to be successful, it's easier to keep the rest of them happy. But that's the only bit of the kind of armor there you're kind of thinking that could be a bit of a kind of a chink there in terms of, like it gets it kind of maybe a bit delicate maintaining that balance. That's probably the only thing where you think that could be a struggle. But yeah, like as Anthony said, I think as soon as Dortmund didn't convert those chances in the first half when they were on top, you just had that sense then that Madrid would be able to just recompose at half time and get a grip of the game, and it's what they did.
Yeah, and it's the 5th Champions League title for Ancelotti as a manager. And this includes his AC Milan spell as well, Conan. And he was talking about how humble all the Real Madrid squad were. I'll take his word on that. But one thing he's always proven throughout his career is this ability to massage egos. And he kind of stays a bit in the background. But like when you look at the haul of trophies he's had, especially in Europe, like this is a fella that deserves a huge amount of credit. And he's definitely up in the pantheon.
Of course he is. It's having to manage a squad of players like that, and it'll be interesting to see how he manages next year's squad as well, considering the personalities that will be in that dressing room. It's kind of just defensively now that I'd kind of worry about Real Madrid in terms of Nacho Fernandez now being 34, Dani Carvajal.
Yeah, and Nacho is leaving as well on top of it as well. Yeah.
Luka Modric, obviously Toni Kroos. So those are players that are coming and leaving and staying, but are at that age that they need to be replaced. And those personalities themselves aren't going to be easy to replace. especially at a club like Real Madrid. So that's the challenge now for Ancelotti going forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on. But like in terms of the game itself, I kind of disagree with Anthony and David in the sense that I thought Real Madrid were quite comfortable. And even though they may have gone a goal down, I still believe that they would have come back given their strength, their character, their power. We saw them against Bayern Munich just lose 2 late goals. We saw them in the first leg where Vinny scores a late goal. Valverde scored a late goal in the 3-3 draw at the Etihad as well, or at the Bernabeu, when they drew 3-3. So they're prone to late goals. They're prone to win games. They're prone to win Champions Leagues. And the goals and the chances that Dortmund had in that first half, a couple of them were offsides that weren't given. So it's kind of, they would have been, if they had gone in, they would have been called offside anyway. Fulkrug's one that hit the inside of the post, that was offside. The one previous to that, can't remember, that one was called off too. So I do think they were quite comfortable in the game. Yes, Dortmund put them under pressure. The counter attack, there was at one stage it was 6v3, and that's where Dortmund are strong. But in that scenario, when they are in that, and I'll agree with the lads here, they need to take their chances when they are on top of a game, and they didn't. And it was just a matter of time. Once it got to halftime, it was 0-0. It was only going to be one winner, and ultimately it was Real Madrid. And Valverde again doesn't get enough credit for the work he does. He's been absolutely instrumental in Real Madrid's midfield for the last 5-6 years. He's been absolutely incredible. Bellingham looks jaded. He looks really tired. I worry for England in the Euros, if I'm being honest. I think he needs a break, and a good break at that, because he didn't perform particularly well in the game, and he hasn't performed particularly well over the last month, 6 weeks, because I think he's fatigued. But having said that, what an interview after the game from someone so young, talking about his family, talking about the people that looked after him, his coaches, being a role model to his younger brother. Like, for a 20-year-old to come out and with an interview like that after winning a Champions League just is unbelievable. So yeah, great success again for Real Madrid, and obviously for Carlo Ancelotti, but looking forward to seeing what he does next season.
Yeah, and that brings us to a close. Of course, a busy Tuesday tomorrow. So that's the Ireland women's playing Sweden live on RT2 and the RT Player, and immediately followed by the men's friendly against Hungary as well. And both of those on the radio, 2FM for the Ireland women's game, and then the men's game on RT Radio 1 Extra. And of course, we'll have comprehensive coverage of Euro 2024 with Germany v Scotland kicking off the opening game in less than 2 weeks on the 14th of June. So as much as some seasons are ending, it's a non-stop train of football, which I'm not going to complain about. But anyway, Conan, thanks very much for your time. Anthony as well, and David Sneyd.